Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Callie. Welcome back to another video. This week we took a deeper look at the feud between Prince William and Prince Harry. And one of the many things that has driven the brothers farther and farther apart is Prince Harry's repeated accusations towards the royal family and just airing of grievances in public. One such time was yet another Bradby interview, but one that he did in preparation for or as part of his publicity for the release of his memoir, Spare. This was one of the more recent times that Harry really widened the wedge between he and his brother.
I don't want history to repeat itself. I do not want to be a single dad. And I certainly don't want my children to have a life without a mother or a father.
Firstly, this obsession that he has repeated many times, that history might repeat itself, is indeed unhealthy. It could be viewed as just anxiety, which Meghan seems to encourage rather than soothe. But it could also be another way for Harry to use his mother's memory as an excuse. He uses security as an excuse for a lot of his poor decisions, whether it's unnecessary private flights or not being able to see his father. So this could really be just another manifestation of using security as an excuse by way of saying, well, I'm worried this will repeat itself, which it won't. Meghan has never been hounded the way Princess Diana was. It's just not the same thing. But what he said next was more telling.
That's the relationship between certain members of the family and the tabloid press. Those certain members have decided to get into bed with the devil, right? To rehabilitate their image. The moment that rehabilitation comes at the detriment of others, me, other members of my family, then that's where I draw the line.
And he really told on himself at this point. He and his wife are actually the biggest perpetrators of getting into bed with the paparazzi. Out of all the members of the royal family, Harry and Meghan are the ones who call them on the phone the most, who have the closest relationships with them, who have helped books be written about people, things of that nature. Perhaps at the point that this interview was given, he had not yet realized that Meghan is the one who was calling the paparazzi and letting people know where they were and things like that. Meg is the leak. It's been proven. Even way back when they first left the royal family and were hiding out in Canada, the paparazzi found them because Meghan told them where she was, and this has come out as a proven fact by investigations. And the Sussexes have done all of this, all of these projects, all of these interviews, at the detriment of literally every other member of their family. For people who work for the monarchy, specific people named, journalists being called out for simply doing their job, but especially King Charles, Queen Camilla, Princess Catherine, Prince William, and their children in particular. Oprah, The Cut, People magazine stories that are not usually accurate at all, paparazzi tip-offs, parking lot strolls for the Meg, the Bradby interview in South Africa, this Bradby interview, Spare, I mean the list goes on. Netflix, all the other interviews for Spare. These are all examples of Harry and Meghan doing exactly what he's accusing members of the royal family doing right now. Meanwhile, we cannot find or see any evidence whatsoever of the royal family putting out any negative stories on the Sussexes at all. Like literally none. It simply hasn't happened. But let's hear the next clip.
Forgiveness is 100% a possibility because I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back. They've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile up until this point. And I'm not sure how honesty is burning bridges. You know, silence only allows the abuser to abuse, right?
The person who is toxic or being toxic, having a toxic moment, however you want to look at it, is often the one to say that they're ready to forgive or want to forgive, as if they're in a position to forgive. They're often the ones who want things to be better because they're not hurt or shocked at what has happened. They were mad. had their tantrum, lashed out, got it out of their system, and now they're ready for it to be over with. And they want everyone else to just get on board with going back to normal now. To say he wants them back, but they've shown no willingness to reconcile, is leaving out a huge piece of the puzzle, which is that during this very time frame and leading up to it that he's speaking about, he and Meghan were constantly, steady drip, publishing complaints to the public about the royal family. The timeline included well over a year of the Sussexes giving interviews, doing Netflix, where they were attacking the royal family all the while. So how could the king or William get to a place of wanting to reconcile when there's one attack after another, over and over, month after month, from Harry and Meghan, leading up to the moment he said this? It maketh no sense. Furthermore, he hasn't been honest. Harry is not honest. Neither is the Meg, far from it. They never give anyone any specifics or facts that can be verified to prove he or Meghan's claims of why they're upset, which is a core issue when it comes to his approach to public complaining. If you're gonna be a whistleblower, so to speak, you have to have the evidence to back it up. Have they learned nothing? Every one of us could likely fill a book with ways in which we're disappointed by or upset with various members of our family or close friends or things that have happened to us in our lives. But those things are usually smaller issues or misunderstandings or disagreements. And even if they cause big feelings or emotions from time to time, they still happen within a familial setting and thus are private, inherently private. These are times where there's usually two sides to a story. Since every single person watching Prince Harry say this has likely had an argument with a sibling or a parent or whatever, pretty much everybody watching Harry at this time immediately recognizing that there is more to the story than what Harry is providing. Even setting aside his often vague accusations, it's impossible to ignore that we're only getting one side of the story time after time. And so he doesn't come across as honest. Not once has Harry or Meghan ever mentioned a single mistake that they have ever made. Not once. They try to paint themselves as saints who've done no wrong to anyone ever, when that's simply impossible, especially within a family dynamic and an argument amongst family members. So immediately Harry and Meghan is clocked as dishonest as he sits here and says he's being honest. He's not. And this "silence only allows the abuser to keep abusing" quote sounds like a line the Meg has given him to encourage him to continue to speak out on these issues, which is so wrong in so many ways. It's a very inflammatory statement to make regardless, like first and foremost, but also it kind of brings to mind the fact that the royal family are the ones who have actually remained completely silent, while Harry and Meghan have continued to rail on them nonstop for years. Small, old problems that are very unimportant in the big picture. So the public has seen zero abuse, if we're using Harry's words here, from the royal family towards the Sussexes. But the public has seen witnessed countless abuses from the Sussexes towards the royal family. So this comes across as major projection.
The one group of people that could have helped or stopped this from happening were the very people that were encouraging it to happen. Some of the way that they were acting or behaving definitely felt to me as though, unfortunately, that stereotyping was causing a bit of a barrier to them really sort of, introducing or welcoming her in. Well, American actress, divorced, biracial, there's all different parts to that and what that can mean.
In this instance, it's clear that Harry is still blaming the royal family for Meghan's suffering, which is contradictory to what he's previously said. In Oprah, he said he didn't tell his family at all any of the struggles that Meghan was going through because he was ashamed, he didn't know what to say, he was uncomfortable with the situation. Then here he claims that the royal family could have and should have done more to stop the Meg's pain and suffering. How could they if they didn't know what was going on? But also, they offered for the Sussexes to not jump into being working royals right away. The Queen had suggested and hoped that they'd live abroad for a year or two, similar to how she and Prince Philip did, and how Catherine and William lived in Wales for some time. She was a wise woman and recognized the value to people in the public eye having a quieter time as newlyweds to settle into their marriage and get to know each other more, especially given the short period of time that Harry and Meghan had known each other. But Meghan didn't want to do that. She didn't want to go live in South Africa or really anywhere else. She wanted to dive right into the role of a working royal and play Princess Diana, is what it seemed like to a lot of people. But this is something that toxic people do a lot. They'll tell you that there is a problem and make it seem very distressing to them. But any solutions that you offer or suggestions that you make are simply unacceptable or inadequate. This solution won't work because of this or that solution is impossible because of whatever other excuse. Which really means that that person just wants to be upset. They want something to complain about. It's almost like they don't have anything else to talk about, so they're going to complain about this small problem. They don't really want the problem fixed and to go away. They just want to have a problem to complain about and talk about and say that this is why they're pissy. It keeps them busy. And that's what this seems like. Furthermore, they did try to help Harry and Meghan. The Meg was offered very experienced staff. She was offered countless mentors, and she rejected them all because she said she wanted to rely exclusively on Harry. She rejected as much help as she possibly could. And assuming he's referencing the press, the versions of events Prince Harry operates off of is the Meg's version, which is usually the opposite of what everyone else experienced. For example, it has been widely confirmed by many various well-placed sources that the Meg did bring Princess Catherine to tears leading up to the wedding and was being particularly difficult about the flower girl dresses. The press ran with these stories months later, and the Meg told Harry they simply weren't true. So he got up in arms and wanted the story corrected. But the palace was then put between a rock and a hard place. They couldn't really correct the stories because the stories were true. They couldn't really go after the press because the press was just making a factual report and had reliable, verified sources of a factual thing that happened. They didn't have any grounds to shut it down for it being false because it was actually true. But because Meghan insists to Harry that her version of events is true and everyone else is lying and conspiring against them, Harry made this a really big problem. So if in most, if not all cases, where Harry would think the royal family could have done something, he was actually wrong. They couldn't, and Harry was actually being lied to by the Meg. But regardless, he also says that William and Catherine had stereotypes towards Meghan that prevented them from being fully welcoming to her. The fact that she was an actress, divorced, and biracial. And this, again, is implying racism, as well as general bias and judgmental behavior, without any specific examples of what was actually done or said that he felt could be attributed to this bias. And this references one of Harold's earliest beefs with William, which was that William suggested Harry take more time to get to know the Meg before marrying, which Harry took great offense to, and has now decided was due to bias rather than an understandable general concern for good solid brotherly advice. He had known Meghan less than 2 years before they got married or something like that, and that's short for what a big change this was for Meghan and what a big public role this was going to become.
The day that she died was just a really, really horrible reaction from my family members. They were on the back foot, and then the briefings and the leaking and the planting. I was like, we're here to celebrate the life of Granny and to mourn her loss. Can we come together as a family?
So this references the fact that Harry was told that Queen Elizabeth II would be transported by royal train, which was a sort of test that the staff, or perhaps the royal family engaged in to see whether or not Harry and Meghan were going to be leaking during the funeral events for Queen Elizabeth II. She was actually going to be flown, and was flown, and I believe Princess Anne accompanied her. They told Harry the train story to see if he could be trusted or not, and it did indeed get leaked by Omid. So the royal family knew that for the duration of the funeral events that they could not give Harry and Meghan any information that needed to be kept private. And there were real reasons for this need. The security of the rest of the family, the new king, the new Prince and Princess of Wales and their children. These people require more discretion on behalf of the royal family, and the fact that Harry and Meghan leaked the train story showed the royal family all they needed to know. And this evidently upset Harry, that he was tricked or that he was found out. And then since then, he has been very much kept out of the bubbles. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away, it was just blood relatives who went up to Balmoral. Catherine stayed behind, and so too was requested that the Meg stay behind. But Harry pitched a fit. On this very sad day, and a very painful time for all of them, and for the country, Harry behaved like a snot, like a diva. It was so rude and unacceptable. This delayed his arrival up to Balmoral because he wanted Meghan to join him. What for? It's his grandmother, and he twists every reasonable, understandable decision into malice and causes grief to everyone else in the process. Then he leaked things during that time, not the other way around. And this has been proven. Harry and Meghan leaked the train story. It was investigated. There's no question. So what he is talking about here is much more projection and frustration at himself, or displaced frustration at the Meg for leaking it. Regardless, he once again doesn't give any concrete evidence of what it is that he thought was leaked about him, or Meghan, when all the evidence we can see is that he and Meghan leaked something important, not the other way around.
And I sit here now in front of you asking for a family, not an institution. I want a family. And I understand how that might be hard for them to be able to separate the two. But to me, everything that I've witnessed and experienced over the years, there has to be a separation.
When he says that he wants a family, not an institution, he's neglecting the fact that his family is extraordinarily unique. They are the royal family of the United Kingdom and Commonwealth nations, and he should learn to accept that. He's never going to fight that one away, and he should learn to love his family despite their duty to their country. Now, this was only part of the interview. Would you like a more in-depth look at the full interview or other interviews from Harry and Meghan? Leave it in the comments if you want, and be sure to click the like button so I know you like this content and would like more episodes like this. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video, and I cannot wait to read your comments below. I hope you have a very happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!